In today's video, we're going to be diving into some more Elden Ring Nightreign, and for this one we're going to be going over everything you need to know about bosses, what the best damage is for them, figure out their weaknesses and what they're strong to so that you can avoid it. Now let's face it, if you've been playing Nightreign for a little while, there's two key things that you've got to overcome within your expeditions. One is going to be having a team that actually sticks with you, and there's not a random person falling over to an enemy 100 miles off in the distance or getting caught out whenever the circle of flames closes in on them. Unfortunately, most times there's not much you can do about that, but for the second one, it's going to be the Night 3 bosses, and that's going to be your Nightlords. Now in game, there's actually a great way to tell exactly how you can defeat these Nightlords a little bit easier. That's whenever you go over to the round table hold, and you're flicking through the bosses that you want to take on. It usually gives a little indicator of exactly what you want to use against them in order to get the most damage from your parties, and honestly, this on its own can help you take them down much easier, but there's also a few other things that go into effect that can really help to determine your run or work out what you want to pick up along the way. So here we have the first boss in the background whenever you're picking the expedition for the Tricephalos, and we're going to be tackling Gladius the Beast of Night. This is quite a tough battle, especially if you're very new to the game, but knowing what he's weak to can really help to overcome them much faster and easier. The main things they're weak to is going to be Holy, Sleep and Pierce, and the main one you want to be focusing on whenever possible will be that Holy, because that's where it takes the most damage from. As well as that though, it's also strong to Poison, Fire and Frostbite. So if you can, you want to avoid these as much as possible, as they're not going to give you the most bang for your buck. And also, one that you definitely want to avoid is going to be Madness, because they're completely immune to that. As you'll find out, almost all the bosses are, except for pretty much one of them currently. For the second boss, this expedition see you taking on the Gaping Jaw, and that's going to be Adel, Baron of Night. Now the game tells you that he's actually weak to poison, and that's definitely one you should be going for, but as well as that, he's also quite weak to Scarlet Rot, Frostbite and Sleep. So status effects work very well against this boss in general. Ones you want to avoid however is going to be Lightning, Fire and Bleed, and you want to stay away from Lightning as much as possible, as he's got quite a bit of negation to these ones. And again, exactly the same as the previous boss, he's going to be immune to Madness, so you want to completely avoid that whenever possible, and focus more so on the status effects for your team in order to tackle him and take him down nice and easy. For the third boss, this expedition is going to see you taking on the Sentient Pest, and this one is going to be Gnoster, Wisdom of Night. Now this is going to be split up into two variations, because obviously you are fighting two different individual entities here. So for the Scorpion, he's going to be weak to Fire, Strike and Pierce, and the main ones you want to be focusing on is going to be Fire more than any, with Strike slightly afterwards really helping out. But he's also weak to Bleed, Scarlet Rot, Frostbite and Sleep. However, for what he's strong against, the main things you want to avoid will be things like Slash, because of how tough his outer exterior is, as well as standard damage, Magic, Holy, Lightning and Poison. But the main one, like I said, will probably be avoiding Slash because of just how tough his exterior is. For the Moth, this thing takes a lot of damage from several areas, and if you've got range damage, this can be a lot easier to tackle this enemy and take them down faster. But for the key weaknesses, what you want to focus on is going to be your Fire damage, Standard damage, Pierce, Strike and Slash. With the main one being your Fire damage overall, if you can get a bit of Pierce or Slash in there, that's also going to help out a lot. As well as that though, it's also weak to Scarlet Rot, Frostbite and Bleed, so you can take a bit of status effects into account, but it is strong against a few things, and the main ones you want to avoid is going to be your Magic damage, probably most overall, but you'll also probably want to avoid Poison and Sleep, if possible a bit of Lightning and Holy. Again, same as the other bosses, both of these are immune to Madness as well. For the fourth boss, this expedition is going to be for the Fulghor, where we'll be taking on Maris, Fathom of Night. Now anyone who's played against this boss will know that it is an absolute nightmare, and I would actually put one of the weaknesses on it being your stamina bar, because all you seem to be doing whenever you're fighting this thing is running back and forth, especially if you haven't got any kind of iron eyes or long range stuff going on in your group. However, there are a few things that you can do in order to help you take it down a little bit faster, and the main thing is actually weak to is going to be Lightning. So if you can manage to get a bit of that going on in your build, especially if you've got it as a group, you can tackle this and take him down a lot faster than you would have otherwise. As well as this though, it's also a little bit weak to Slash, but on the other hand it's also strong to quite a few different types of damage that you want to be careful of. Main one is going to be Fire, you want to avoid this because it's very strong to that, but it's also strong to Magic, Holy, Strike and Pierce as well, so whenever possible you probably want to avoid these whenever you can. So if you are able to get someone in your team with some Lightning going on, that will make this much easier overall. Other things to remember is that this is actually one of the first bosses that's immune to quite a few different types of status effects, namely Madness, poison, sleep and bleed. So again, he's got a lot going on in his kit that makes him very durable and a bit of a pain to take down if you're not prepared for him. Over to the 5th boss, and this was one that actually had me stuck on him for quite some time. Whenever I was in a party with people, we just could not seem to get this thing down. So the expedition we'll be tackling is going to be the Equilibrious Beast, and we'll be taking on the boss Libra, Creature of Night. This thing is the only boss currently in the game that's actually weak to madness, so if you are able to pick something up with that on, it can help out a lot. And if I remember correctly, it sometimes knocks him out of his fury state, allowing you to make the fight much faster and easier than it would have been without it. As well as that though, other key ones to look at is going to be your Holy, probably most of all, right up there with your Madness, but some other good ones will be Fire, Strike, Scarlet Rot and Poison. However, as with all bosses, there'll be a few damage types and status effects that you want to avoid, with the main one against him being Magic, but also it's a little bit resistant to Pierce, Strike and Standard damage. Finally, because he can't be immune to Madness, this one's actually immune to Sleep. But again, there's not too much going on in the game that actually involves sleep currently, except for maybe St. Trinia's sword, which I still haven't used, so if anyone has, let me know in the comments if it's worthwhile on a few of these bosses. Now, whenever you're taking on your 6th boss, this one again can be a bit of a tricky one because he hits very hard, has some great AoE going on, so I've seen this wipe a lot of parties. That's going to be the expedition of the Dark Drift Knight, which will see you tackling Fulghor, Champion of Nightglow. Now, the main thing you want to focus on with this boss, whenever possible, try to have some lightning going on in your build, as that can really help you to dwindle down its health faster. But as well as that, a few key ones you might want to look at will be Poison, Frostbite, Bleed, Rot and Sleep. So status effects work really well against this boss again. Things to avoid though is going to be Holy more than anything, so if you can, try to avoid that. That's going to be very much negated, and for his immunity, only one this time, and it's going to be a standard one that a lot of them have got, because that's going to be Madness. Over to what's probably the largest expedition boss currently in the game, and for this one, we're going to be taking on Fissure in the Fog, where we'll be tackling the dragon boss Caligo, Miasma of Night. Now this boss is actually weak against Fire and Strike, so whenever you can, try and put that into some kind of effect. I think that might be why Raiders seem to be so effective against this, whenever they can pull off their big moves right underneath him, or if you've got any spellcasters that can manage to get hold of some fire spells, that will help out with some crazy damage as well. Things to note though is that he's strong against a whole bunch of things that you want to avoid if possible. The main one's going to be Magic, Lightning, Holy and Sleep. But also he's got a bit of negation against Frostbite, Pierce and Slash. So overall he's quite a tanky boss to take on, especially if you haven't got any of the damage type that you need in order to tackle his weaknesses. As well as this, once more, his immunity is only about single one, and that's going to be the Madness type. Last but definitely not least, we head over to the last boss currently in the game. That's going to be your 8th boss, the Night Aspect Expedition, where you'll be tackling Heolstor The Nightlord. This boss currently has 2 phases to him, so I'm going to break them down because they're slightly different overall. With the first phase, he's mainly going to be weak to Holy, Fire, but also a little bit of Pierce and Slash. What he's strong against is going to be Strike and Sleep, but it does alternate with Strike, so I wouldn't worry too much if you are running things like a Raider build, because the second phase is tougher than the first. For phase 2, a slight change up to this. This time he is the same again. You do want to focus on Holy, so Holy seems to be the big one that can help to damage this guy overall. But as well as that, Lightning works out really well, with Pierce and Strike giving a bit of extra damage as well. The 2 he's strong to this time, again, it's going to be Sleep, which most people won't be using anyway, but the other one is going to be Slash. Finally, for his immunities, this guy's immune to a whole bunch of status effects, so you do want to be a bit wary, especially if you're playing things like Executioner and going with Bleed builds, because he's immune to Bleed, Frostbite, Poison and Madness. Overall, a very tricky boss to tackle, and even though he looks like he's not strong against too many things, because of how damaging he is in the game and all the area effects going off in the second phase, he can take you down very fast if you're not prepared. So the main one for him, if you can, try and get a bit Holy in your build somewhere, in order to do additional damage, take him down a lot faster, and hopefully make the expedition a whole bunch easier than it would have been for you and your team. But yeah, hopefully this has helped a few of you guys and girls out. That's pretty much everything you should focus on for these bosses, or try to avoid in general. I'm having an absolute blast playing the game, hopefully you are too, and there'll be a whole bunch more content away from me soon. As always, Full Fins Gaming, take care. I'll see you on the next day.